his staff want him to hide away? One must question, are they afraid that people will see that he is too weak and unstable to lead America?
This week, she's heading back to familiar territory. The vice president will campaign in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, kicking off what her team calls the, quote, Blue Wall Battleground Blitz. A blitz made easier with the more than $1 billion she's raised since becoming the Democratic nominee in July. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is closing out his election sprint by continuing to sabotage voters' faith in our elections. About an hour ago, Trump took the stage in Prescott Valley, Arizona, and he's still speaking now. You see it right there. Once again, he's casting doubt on the 2020 results.
We had a rather strange election, didn't we? We're not going to let that happen again. Not going to let that happen again. Remember, we did great in 2016. We did much better in 2020.
But this presidential race isn't only about the contrast between Trump and Harris or between Republicans and Democrats. It's also shaping up to be an election split along gender lines. Just look at the gender divide in the latest NBC News poll, which shows Harris up 14 points with women, while Trump is up 16 points with men. That staggering 30-point gender gap is unprecedented in this poll. There's so much to get into with all of these numbers, so let's get to it with NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. Mark, as always, thank you very much for coming here on polling day. So let's talk about that gender gap. Is it as unprecedented as I just said?
So in our previous elections, going back to 2016 and 2020, the exit polls ended up showing a sizable gender gap around in the 20-point range between the Democratic candidate with women and the Republican candidate with men. But, Jonathan, what our poll shows right now, 30 points is significantly larger what we saw in 2016 and 2020. And I think this will probably be one of the main storylines we'll be following on election day, election night, as we get those first or second exit poll returns, looking at the size of the gender gap. And also what's really instructive for me is in our poll, one of the reasons why this race is tied is that Trump is slightly doing better, that 16-point edge with men, than Harris with her 14-point edge among women. And honestly, probably the secret to Democratic success and doing better on Election Day than our poll shows is if Harris is able to do better with women than Trump does with men.
So I was about to ask, so just because the vice president does better with women, does that guarantee to, you know, Democrats out there who are like, oh, women are more than half the electorate?
So everything matters, Jonathan. And of course, you know, you want to maximize where you are strong and where your strengths, but also shore up your weaknesses too, which is one of the reasons why you end up hearing from former President Barack Obama, who was talking about men, that sometimes when you realize and you're looking at these same crosstabs and saying, hey, we're not doing that well with this demographic group, you want to be able to shore up those weaknesses, and the side that capitalizes on their strengths and minimizes their weaknesses probably ends up winning.
All right, a few things to get to in the 2 minutes that we have. The significance that of all the issues that people said was their number one issue, abortion was number one, with 22% saying abortion was their number one issue. What do we make of that?
So this is a different way than we've asked the question in the past. And in the past, us and other polls often say, what is your top concern? And cost of living, economy have always ended up being at the top. But this question is asked a little differently, Jonathan. It says, if there was one issue that fires you up or motivates you so much that you would vote for or against a candidate solely based on that issue, that's where we see abortion go ahead of cost of living. We also end up seeing immigration and democracy and constitutional rights. But we wanted to ask the question a little bit differently to get at what gets intensity and what ends up getting motivation. And you end up seeing that, you know, the fact that abortion jumps but cost of living falls to number 4, to me is kind of indicative on what is a more motivating issue versus what is a top issue.
That's really interesting because the poll found that Vice President Harris is viewed as better on the handling of the abortion issue, 53% than Trump at 34%. One more thing, voters remember Trump's presidency more positively than Biden's. What do you think is behind that?
So this is something that has been kind of constant over the past year or so, where voters' perceptions of the Trump presidency are much rosier than their perceptions of the current Biden presidency. And obviously, this was something that we ended up seeing when Joe Biden was in the race. And now that he's out, that still, to me, is one of the bigger overall stories that's shaping this overall environment. We've seen in our poll, and Jonathan, our poll shows that Donald Trump is very unpopular, but so is President Biden. And some of those perceptions are kind of coloring this overall environment and kind of creating a drag for Kamala Harris.
Also, maybe the distance. Every president, when they're in office, unpopular. As time goes on and they're out of office, that folks have a better view of their presidency. Mark Murray, as always, thank you very much for coming to the Sunday Show and talking about these numbers. And joining me now, Congressman Colin Allred of Texas. He is the Democratic Senate candidate there in the Lone Star State. Congressman, thank you very much for coming back to the Sunday Show. So, in teasing this conversation, I pointed out that you are the Democratic nominee. You are the one who is hoping to oust Senator Ted Cruz, the Republican incumbent. Why are you going to be the one this time? Why is this time the time?
Well, hey, Jonathan, thanks for having me on. Listen, number one, I've won tough races, and we're going to do it again. And Texans are looking for new leadership. We've been through enough with Senator Cruz. We've seen how in the last 6 years what he has done. From going to Cancun when we needed him most, to trying to overturn our last presidential election, to being singularly responsible for this abortion ban that we're experiencing now in Texas. And I have a record of bringing folks together. I'm the most bipartisan Texan in Congress, and I'm proud of that. But we're now in the stage where we know this is a winnable race. The only question is, what are we going to do to make sure that we get folks out to vote? And so I hope that everyone watching, certainly my folks in Texas, make a plan, get involved with us. You can go to colinallred.com to find a way to volunteer. Also, support our campaign. Let's beat Ted Cruz. Let's also make sure we get a senator who cares about all 30 million Texans.
The last sort of the New York Times poll of your race had you at 43%, Senator Cruz at 45%. That's within the margin of error. So you are within striking distance. But one concern I want to bring up is what I was just talking to Mark Murray about. In the latest NBC News poll, Vice President Harris and Donald Trump are tied at 48%. You'll need to outperform the vice president in Texas in order to prevail. How concerned are you that the national race is tied in a dead heat?
Well, listen, to me, I'm running in Texas. This has always been about Texas. And I think, Jonathan, you and I have talked enough to know that I'm a fourth-generation Texan and that we can't have 6 more years of Ted Cruz's failed leadership, but also just of what he's done in terms of putting us in this position where Texas women and families are suffering under this abortion ban that has gone way too far. And so we have a separate decision to make in Texas from the presidential election, and I understand how important it is. I really do. But this is also for us going to be someone who's going to serve us for longer than the term of the next president. And I think Texans are making a very important decision here, and I think they're making a separate one. And so what we're trying to make sure over these last couple weeks is that folks know my story and know what I've done, and of course remind them of what Ted Cruz has done, because he is incredibly unpopular here for a reason. He's earned it.
Let me get you on one more thing before I have to let you go. You released a new attack ad against Senator Cruz on abortion. Do you think this could be the issue that resonates with Texans and powers you to victory?
Well, it's a huge issue because it's a huge issue and because of what it's doing to so many Texas families. And, here in Texas, this is something that we've been talking about for some time, but these stories are just now, I think, becoming something that every Texan is starting to understand. That someone like Kate Cox, a friend of mine, mother of 2, who had a much wanted 3rd pregnancy, that it's not right that she couldn't get the care she needed close to home, that she had to leave her kids behind and go to another state to get treated. But the good news is that Kate is pregnant again. She's due in January, just in time to see us beat Ted Cruz and be sworn in and to restore Roe v. Wade and go back to the standard that we've had for the last 50 years.
Congressman Colin Allred of Texas, as always, thank you very much for coming to the Sunday Show. And I want to point out, we reached out to Congressman Allred's opponent, Senator Ted Cruz, and asked him to join us for an interview as well. But so far, We've gotten no response. Coming up, with just 23 days to go until Election Day, Democrats are trying to shore up more support among two critical voting blocs, Black and Latino voters. Charles Coleman Jr. and Maria Teresa Kumar join me next to discuss what needs to be done. Plus, a deep dive into the life of late civil rights icon Congressman John Lewis, with the author of a new biography that showcases Lewis's remarkable transformation from student activist to a national moral force in Congress. Stay with us. You're watching The Sunday Show on MSNBC.
Ugh, a rash? Maybe it'll go away. Oh, how am I going to find a doctor I'll feel comfortable showing this to? A QR code? Okay. Oh, these great doctors are on ZocDoc. Dr. Taylor's a great listener. Meh. Well, who do you like? Dr. Stafford is available today, super understanding, and girl, he has seen way worse. Thanks, Rash.
You've got more options than you know. Book now.
We love garage keypads. They're easy and convenient, but you never really know who's using it or when. Introducing the all-new MyQ Smart Garage Video Keypad. With the built-in camera, you get streaming HD video day or night. Create up to 16 custom PIN codes and get real-time notifications when the keypad is used. It's not just the key to your garage, it's the key to your home. Go to myq.com to get yours today.
Or shop at amazon.com.
At Bombas, we dream of comfort, movement, softness. We believe your basic things should be your very best things, which is why we make the most comfortable socks in the history of feet. Slippers you'll float in, and underwear and tees that feel like clouds. No, bunnies. As always, one purchased equals one donated. Bombas. Visit bombas.com and get 20% off your first order.
When you sleep more deeply, you wake up more energized. Introducing Purple's new mattresses. Our unique Gel Flex grid draws away heat, helping you fall asleep faster. It relieves pressure for less ow and more ah, and instantly adapts as you move without ever disturbing your partner. Amazing. Sleep better. Live Purple. Visit purple.com or a store near you today.
Cash in on the football action with Underdog, just by picking higher or lower on two or more players on stats like yards, touchdowns, and receptions to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Now available in 33 states. Join the millions of Underdog customers who have won billions just by playing along. Sign up today with promo code Billy to get a free pick. Higher, lower, it's your call. All on Underdog.
Whether it's your future health, your future income, or your future happiness, becoming an AARP member today can help. Join for just $12 for the first year with automatic renewal and get a second membership free. Plus, you'll receive an insulated trunk organizer. Call or go online today, because the younger you are, the more you need AARP.
1 second, they're a neighbor you like. The next, they're a neighbor you